For service safety, we did have a meeting. The meeting was on the 23rd, I believe. Yeah, June 23rd at 5 o'clock. President was myself, Mr. Kevern, and Mr. Van Hoosen, and John Eckel was there for a portion of the meeting. We had citizens' concerns. Tom Freeze said his mother lives at 422 West 5th Street. He expressed his concern regarding the length of time roads have been torn up and streets have been closed in that area due to the sewer separation project. Mr. Eckel said that the roads are being resurfaced and it should be wrapped up within the month. And John presented Mr. Eckel stated that a notice was received from the Ohio Division of Liquor Control regarding a request for a liquor permit, and that the city has the option of requesting a hearing if it would like. Mr. Eckel further explained the nature of the option to request a hearing and Mr. Van Hoosen's request. Mr. Eckel added that he contacted Deputy Police Chief Jim Rose and he has no issues with the permit. I asked who would own the permit. I asked if the permit would be assigned to a specific location or if ownership of the permit would be held by the entity requesting the permit. Mr. Eckel said it would be in the name of Costco Wholesale and that the request indicated somewhere near the intersection of Echo Junction Road and State Route 25 because there is no mailing address. And the committee agreed 3-0 to not request a hearing regarding this request. We had the last thing on our agenda was other concerns, and we had Mr. Scarborough present who made a presentation. Mr. Scarborough is the president of the Perrysburg Professional Firefighters, pardon me, IAFF Local 3331. He made a presentation to the committee on behalf of the union to state the union's adamant opposition to the reduction in the minimum staffing level for the fire division. He added that the fire division personnel are also residents of Perrysburg. I reminded him that in emails between myself and Mr. Scarborough, that I had explained to him that the issue was not within the jurisdiction or the purview of the Service Safety Committee or the full City Council, but rather it was an administrative matter. Nonetheless, I did agree to allow him to make his presentation. When I first asked Mr. Scarborough what he had hoped to gain from presenting to the committee, he said that he wanted to educate the public and get information on the record. I asked him if he had presented the same information he had with him to the administration since the issue at hand was an administrative matter. Mr. Scarborough replied, stating that the fire division has a policy that prohibits him from coming across the street and talking to anyone. He later clarified that there is an exception for labor management negotiations. After Mr. Scarborough had made his presentation and provided the committee the related information he had brought with him to the meeting, I asked Mr. Scarborough if anyone in the fire division has been losing money as a result of the reduced minimum staffing. Mr. Scarborough replied that they actually make more money because they get called in more often. He reiterated on 3 more occasions that fire division personnel are making more money as a result of the reduced staffing. Mr. Van Hoosen said that he was trying to figure out what an appropriate number for staffing should be since the fire union has been claiming that 4 is not an appropriate number. Discussion about that ensued. Mr. Van Hoosen asked why the department schedules 7 firefighters, paramedics per shift, and how it has been that we have been ending up with less than the scheduled number of personnel on duty. Mr. Van Hoosen and I are both new to council, so this was kind of a new area to us. Mr. Scarborough explained that 7 men are scheduled to accommodate for sick time, vacation time, comp time, and Kelly days, and that any one of which would result in less than 7 men on duty at any given time unless someone else was called in to backfill. Mr. Scarborough explained that about 85% of overtime is incurred because of backfilling, and I think he's since looked at that and has revised that to about 72%. Is that right? Okay. Mr. Scarborough made reference to the 2002 study that was done regarding a second fire station that he had provided to the committee. It was kind of quick. There wasn't a lot of time to go through. It was a pretty involved study. There was some discussion that recommendation be made in the study and who had made the recommendation. I asked for further clarification regarding the fire division policy that prohibits the employees from communicating directly with the administration. Mr. Scarborough offered to email me the policy, and he provided some verbal clarification at the committee meeting. I did say that personally, I think money is an influencing factor for both sides of the minimum staffing issue. I made it clear that it's unfortunate if it is, and reminded everyone that safety is of paramount importance. I said that although I can't speak for the administration, I don't think they would knowingly endanger anyone. I also said that I think the same thing would hold true for the fire personnel. Cindy Wilson, wife of one of the fire division employees, expressed her frustration with the fact that money keeps being brought up. When I say keep being brought up, it kept being brought up at the committee meeting. And stated that her concern is for her husband and for the other fire division employees. She said if they arrive at a fire and someone is trapped inside, they don't have the personnel that they need, and it scares her to think that her husband would attempt to rescue others without proper backup. Mr. Hagan spoke up. He's a citizen. He's here tonight. He cautioned the committee to proceed carefully because they have hired someone to oversee the fire division, and they should let that person do their job. He's referring to the fire chief. He said that an overtime budget was approved, and just like other divisions, the fire division is expected to live within their budget, implying that money might be an issue. There was discussion regarding hiring additional personnel to eliminate some of the overtime. Mr. Scarborough said that there is not enough room in the fire station for more personnel and their gear. He said that if a second station were opened, they could eliminate all overtime. I offered that I'd be willing to help work things out, but everybody needs to know that both sides are, I need to know that both sides are trying to work out the safety issue in good faith. The committee members each thanked Mr. Scarborough for his presentation. I asked Mr. Scarborough that he make the effort to funnel the information he distributed to the committee that night to the administration through the fire chief, and it's my understanding that he has done that. We just have not received any, heard of any response from either the fire chief or the administration regarding that information. I don't know if the administration has received it. If you haven't, he did have a big packet of information that he distributed at the committee meeting. I would ask that you ask the fire chief.
I have not.
Okay. I would ask that you ask the fire chief for that. How long ago, Pete, did you get that to him?
It's been a while. I couldn't tell you the date.
It's been since the committee meeting, though?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I got the information from him and I gave it to you and I gave it back to him.
Oh, you got that from him? You didn't tell us that at the committee meeting?
Well,
I thought you put all that together.
Years ago.
Okay. All right. Okay. There being no further business, the meeting adjourned at 5:47. Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, July 28th at 5 p.m.
Thank you. Mr. Matuzak, if I could add in, I've had many residents who have spoken to me about the situation with the firefighters, and I felt obligated, since it certainly was more than just one phone call would suffice. I just prepared a statement to express to the people who are in Perrysburg who have spoken to me a general statement as to what I found. So many times in government, people raise concerns to their representatives and hear nothing in return. So they believe they are not fairly represented, or worse, ignored. Concerns have been raised to me as a councilman regarding the cut to minimum staffing levels in our fire department, and I would not want my silence to reflect the belief that concerns are not being addressed. It is my job as council person to look into each concern and report back what I have found. Therefore, since I have had many residents approach me regarding the fire department staffing issue, I felt it necessary to, at the very least, publicly report what I have found. Over the past month, I have investigated rationale behind the cut to minimum staffing levels. As I understand, it was based on a budgetary issue due to extreme weather conditions relative to overtime. Since that time, the mayor released a final statement on the issue stating that this staffing level would remain indefinitely. As I understand, our overtime budget is no longer in the red, yet the staffing level remains. So at this point, indefinitely seems to reflect a permanent change. The administration's rationale is that effectiveness of the fire department does not statistically change when comparing 4 firefighters versus 5. I've requested the specific statistics the administration is using to arrive at this conclusion, and I have not received these statistics as of yet. The only information I've received is that the statistics were used that reflect a 2-month study. I have also received information that the cardiac save effectiveness of the department has significantly decreased since the reduction of the minimum staffing. In fairness, it is purely speculative that the statistics are relative to the reduction. However, it is something that all fire departments look at in evaluating their overall effectiveness, so it seems particularly relevant in this situation. As stated in council session and in discussions with the administration, the city of Perrysburg is currently researching the ideas of a second fire station, which I applaud. It certainly recognizes that we are growing and expanding in our city in population, business, traffic, and indeed in need of public service. Yet, when you juxtapose that with the reducing to a minimum staffing level, the two certainly seem to contradict each other. As a councilman, I feel it is my responsibility and duty to ask questions when residents express concern and report back with my findings. I believe I have done my due diligence in doing so, and I would continue to welcome concerns from our citizens so our representative body reflects the attitudes of all of our constituents. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to add to that, because actually in my committee report, my report was really just a report of what took place. I didn't editorialize in my committee report. I didn't include any of the information that Mr. Scarborough had presented, because had I done so, then I would have no reason to ask him to present it to the administration himself through the chief, which is why I excluded most of what he said. The only thing that was in my committee report is his responses to our questions. But I did also write up a report that is my take on what's going on. And the tone of my report may be off a little bit because I wrote this in the 2 days following the committee meeting, and I've since been talking to people and learning more things, trying to do some of my own analysis regarding payroll. I'm still working on that. At first glance, I did not see what I thought I was going to see in the payroll reports. So as I read this, if I pause, it's because I'm going to change what my written report says based on things that I've learned since. As I stated in my report relative to the June 23rd Service Safety Committee meeting, Pete Scarborough, on behalf of the Perrysburg Firefighters and Paramedics, and in his capacity as the president of the Perrysburg Professional Firefighters Union, he asked that the committee, for reasons set forth in my report, make an effort to help the fire department union present its case to our administration. The entire committee expressed its willingness to get involved if needed, and I personally require that two things take place before I intervene in the process beyond tonight, which was a couple weeks ago. Specifically, I asked that Mr. Scarborough make the effort to adhere to the established chain of command by forwarding his concerns, opinions, documents, and information to the administration via our fire chief, Mr. Klein, in the same way that I suspect that as the president of the local firefighters union, he expects his men to voice their individual and collective concerns to the union through him. Secondly, I explained that I would assist him in his efforts only if I thought he was committed to addressing the matter in good faith. In short, I asked for principled but loyal dissent. That being the case, for the benefit of the administration, council, the fire department, our citizens, in the interest of transparency, and perhaps because I'm new at this and just don't know any better, I'm going to take the opportunity tonight to explain my current understanding of the matter regarding the reduction in the staffing of the Perrysburg Fire Department, my insights based on the discussion that took place at the June 23rd committee meeting, and my opinions based on what I've learned to date. Mr. Scarborough appeared before the committee to present his case publicly and to get it on the record. He was well prepared with a written speech and accompanying exhibits to support his assertions. Prior to his presentation, he offered to answer any questions we might have for him following his presentation. He kept his promise. If the administration hasn't already received the materials Mr. Scarborough presented to the committee, then I suggest it request them from Chief Klein. I'll address the most important things I've learned to date, including but not necessarily limited to those things I took away from the committee meeting, and I'll comment accordingly. To the best of my knowledge and belief, there has been no disagreement with anyone that safety is and should be our primary concern. Not just the safety of the people that live, work, visit, and invest in Perrysburg, but the safety of our fire and rescue personnel as well. There is, however, disagreement as to whether we have compromised our safety by reducing the fire department's staffing levels. The administration, which includes our fire chief, has made its position quite clear. It does not believe that safety has been compromised. The fire department personnel and apparently the union disagree. The parties disagree, but to the best of my knowledge and belief, there has been little, if any, substantive direct communication between the parties. I'll tell you why I think that is the case. There has been tension between the administration and/or councils for several years over the amount of compensation certain fire department personnel have been able to make, a significant amount of which has been earned as overtime pay. If you'll indulge me here, success in my profession as a practicing certified public accountant specializing in tax matters is based in large part on my ability to identify the issues and the relevant governing authority, if any exists, interpret it, and apply it in such a way that my clients pay as little tax as possible. In other words, I get paid to help people pay fewer taxes by doing what the government hasn't yet told them they can't do. To that end, I have to ask, does the fire department deserve the reputation they seem to have acquired because of their overtime pay if they are simply earning as much as they can without doing something that they haven't yet been told they can't do? If they are, more power to them. Likewise, if they are, and current and prior administrations and/or councils believe that pay has been excessive, then shame on all of us for allowing such a situation to develop. I suspect that has begun to change. I seem to recall a long time ago being told in school when I showed up that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. If that is in fact the case, then it would seem reasonable that the administration take the same approach as the fire department by doing what they can to curb what they believe to be an abuse, provided that they do so within the confines of their command and authority. If the fire department doesn't like it, they simply need to understand that two can play the same game. My take on this is the fire department does get it, which leads me to my greater concern. It's my opinion that the fire department doesn't think it can administratively force the administration to ease up or reverse its course of action with respect to the fire department's reduction in staffing, so it has appealed to the Service Safety Committee in an attempt to politicize the issue. That's neither good nor bad. In so doing, they are claiming that safety has been compromised in an apparent effort to sway public opinion. They may very well be right. They may not be. However, I don't think they're addressing the entire issue in good faith if they are unwilling, which they seem to be, to admit that compensation is also a mutual concern. I have since looked into this, and if I were rewriting my opinions here, I might change that last bit because I'm not seeing that compensation has gone down. Mr. Scarborough, you made the presentation of money to Mr. Kevern, a former CEO and our current president of City Council with a long history of serving in a public advisory role. He's been around the block more than a few times. To myself, a practicing CPA with over 25 years experience advising the public, including, I might add, individual safety personnel from various communities with whom I have, and I will continue to consult with. And to Mr. Van Hoosen, who has also logged a considerable number of miles as a public advisor and who, among other things, I believe, makes a living assessing risks. I think you appeared before a few good men. I respectfully request that you take that into consideration. We've been asked to accept that safety has been compromised as a result of the reduction in personnel on duty, and as Mr. Scarborough has implied, are consequently not available to respond to calls, and at the same time accept your claim that everyone is making more money with the new policy in place. As Mr. Reddick said, intuitively, that just doesn't seem right, that if safety is being compromised because we have fewer people on calls, that pay wouldn't be going down. Man hours are down, but department-wide pay is up. That's counterintuitive. As we've seen played out here recently, arguments of convenience lack integrity and inevitably trip you up. I remind you of the first law of holes. If you get in one, stop digging. You've consistently made reference to the city's leadership. As a leader yourself, your men and their families are counting on you, Mr. Scarborough. Let's make no mistake, if we have in fact materially compromised our safety, then the reduction in the fire department's safety is risky business. Mr. Scarborough has asked for our help, and if we find it necessary, I don't think the mission is impossible. Respectfully, Jim Matuzak.
Any other comments? All I'll say is the administration continues to believe and is supported by our numbers and is supported by best practices that we are currently at safest and best practice, and our plan is to continue to do so until we would have evidence to suggest that that's not happening. Thank you. All right.